Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige seems to have a bigger role in Sony Pictures' Spider-Man universe than previous thought. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. How involved is Marvel Studios and its president Kevin Feige when it comes to films like Venom and Morbius? Seeing as neither of those projects features Spider-Man, one would naturally assume that Sony is going at it alone. Another reason why many think Marvel isn't involved is the quality of these spin-off projects. To put it lightly, Jared Leto's new Marvel Legend was not taken too well. The MCU Spider-Man movies are nothing short of a miracle. To have them exist in the first place required intensive cooperation and trust between both Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios. Somehow, even though their relationship almost fell apart, the two are still working happily together. In fact, there are more Spider-Man movies in the pipeline. But what about Sony's other projects? In a new report from The Ankler, a surprising detail about Kevin Feige's own spider senses was revealed. According to the outlet, the Marvel Studios president doesn't just help out with the Tom Holland Spider-Man films. He does still offer notes for Sony's projects outside of the MCU. One of the outlet's insiders credited Feige for guiding Sony's approach, as well as warning the studio not to get too ahead of itself. And yes, Marvel's Kevin Feige does weigh in and offer notes on Sony's Marvel movies that don't feature Spider-Man. One insider credits Feige for guiding Sony's approach and warning the studio not to get too ahead of itself in terms of building some larger universe in the vein of the Avengers movies. While it might seem the obvious answer is that Marvel Studios doesn't include themselves outside of Tom Holland, the truth might be the opposite. According to a new report, Kevin Feige may be more a part of the process than previously thought. Feige also took issue with how the film opens, telling Sony, "Don't start with Spider-Man. Let the danger/stakes to NYC build first and then have Spider-Man enter the scene heroically." Also a problem for Feige was Andrew Garfield's leading performance, which the MCU boss felt was all over the place. This wouldn't be the first time that the MCU boss has given the studio some guidance, as revealed by the infamous Sony leaks from 2014. Feige had numerous comments on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 prior to its release, in addition to ways in which these could be improved. The Marvel Studios president mentioned in emails to Sony producer Amy Pascal that he really loved Electro, but suggested that the movie may not need the scene in his apartment, which makes him seem completely crazy and hard to relate to. Many might be confused to hear that Feige does, in fact, give notes to Sony. It certainly makes one wonder how that abysmal and often memed Morbius post-credit sequence made it to screen. Andrew's performance is all over the place, a lot of crying and then a lot of mania. Hard to track him emotionally sometimes. It undermines his reaction to Gwen's death because he gets upset and emotional a lot. As is evident by the final release of the Andrew Garfield-led film, much of these problems were not addressed by Sony. At the end of the day, Marvel Studios wants and needs access to Spider-Man, and they will likely do everything possible to keep that status quo. Sadly, this seemingly includes the creation of projects such as Morbius. It's unclear whether Sony Pictures will take Feige's notes on board at this point. The studio was riding on high on the Venom franchise's financial success in spite of the film's critical reception, but Morbius' lackluster response and box office blunders may convince Sony to finally listen to a heavily experienced outsider's perspective. Morbius is now available to buy where movies are sold. The odds of the Marvel Studios' boss words falling on deaf ears are probably pretty high. After all, Sony somehow decided to make Kraven the Hunter an animal lover for his upcoming solo project, the antithesis of the character in the comics. It's probably a safe bet that Feige didn't recommend they make a movie out of El Muerto, one of Sony's most questionable choices to date. The Marvel Studios boss expressed deep concern over the state of the movie-going experience. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in early 2020, just about everyone and everything was entirely upended. With much of the planet's population rendered unable to go anywhere, recreational activities such as going to the movies took a nosedive. And Marvel was certainly not exempt from this drop-off. 2020 was the first year in over a decade that the blockbuster studio didn't release any new MCU content, leaving much of its slate pushed back on the calendar. Of course, the MCU came back in a big way the next year with over 8 projects released between cinemas and Disney+. But that stretch of time in 2020, as it turned out, didn't do wonders for Feige's stress level. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige admitted to being in a state of worry over the pandemic's impact on the MCU's movies. Feige continued, emphasizing the cultural crossover brought forth by sitting in a movie theater auditorium and taking in a feature film with others from all walks of life. But I also think nothing beats the shared experience of being in a theater with hundreds of strangers experiencing something. And I think in today's world, it is more important than ever to have some cultural crossover amongst different types of people to live in a shared experience together. And nothing does that better than the theatrical experience. Speaking to the Movie Business Podcast, Marvel Chief Creative Officer and Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige spoke on his pandemic-fueled anxiety that the movie-going experience would suffer long-term negative impacts from COVID-19. I think that, a couple of years ago, when we were in the heat of the pandemic, I was very worried, as we all were, about the state of the world, about the future of civilization, and about the future of the movie business, and specifically the theatrical side of the business. Because I do believe that you can make incredible things that are meant to be seen in the comfort of your own home and tell as great a story as any. It's been established that Feige is a firm believer in the notion that big-budget blockbuster films should be first seen at the theater. In fact, word got out that he was upset over Black Widow simultaneously releasing on Disney Plus alongside the movie's theatrical debut, albeit as a premium add-on. In 2021, audiences were polled on whether they'd prefer to watch Black Widow in the theater or at home. The results indicated that roughly two-thirds of the poll respondents would much rather catch the movie at the cinema. Amongst many of the 2021 big-screen blockbusters, Widow scored the highest as the film moviegoers most wanted to see in theaters, clearly showing the appetite fans had for the theatrical experience. After all, the MCU's Phase 4 introduced series and special presentations that carry the story forward on the streaming platform, enabling Marvel to cover more ground, narratively speaking, and leaving the feature side of things to keep trucking along. Marvel Studios' next surefire blockbuster Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, is set to hit theaters in less than a month on Friday, February 17th. Also of note is that Marvel Studios has had consistently good box office returns since 2021, even without the juggernaut market of China in their corner. It's clear to see that fans and Marvel itself love when these movies can be viewed on the big screen, to the point where many would likely be extremely upset if Marvel were to hypothetically vacate theaters for whatever reason and stick to Disney Plus releases. It appears that more than just Marvel's first family will jump from Fantastic Four first steps to the Avengers. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige announced the connection between Fantastic Four and Avengers, Doomsday, in a new showcase. It's already been confirmed that Marvel's first family will jump from Fantastic Four, first steps, to Avengers, Doomsday, but beyond that, it's unclear which other characters from their reboot will leap with them. An obvious candidate would be Franklin Richards, the son of Reed Richards and Susan Storm. It is hard to believe the Fantastic Four would leave him home with a nanny while they went to another universe to stop Doctor Doom. However, something Feige said might illuminate who else will join the fray. They wrap next week,